Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
One more for the pile, Tom.
Yeah!
Yeah.
Oh, it never ends.
It never ends. We're in hell.
I relate very strongly to people living in a pocket of the wasteland and devoting a significant portion of their workforce to preventing time from moving forward.
Oh, yes. Hi, everyone.
That is what I feel like. Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Yeah.
The film where the pull quote is from Nicolas Cage.
Yep. It's going to be a weird one, folks. Here we go.
Yeah.
My granddaughter has been lost to us. I would have her return to me post-haste. And you, sir, I am told, are the man to do the job.
This, shit. There was, all right, what was new? There's the other thing that's new, The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Eyes of Tammy Faye is in limited release this week, or maybe it is in wide release this week. But
I don't know.
The problem is no theater near me is playing it until next weekend, which that's the movie we really wanted to cover. But
yeah, and we know you're all scrambling for that one, so yeah, we'll cover that next week.
Listen, we do some for you guys, and then we do some for us. And
yeah, I legit want to see that.
Andrew Garfield playing a maniac falls firmly into the one for us category.
Oh yeah. Although I legitimately wanted to see this too. This is
Prisoners of Ghostland. Yeah. No. Yeah. This obviously it's a Gonzo.
It's the director of Suicide Club. This director has done Cold Fish, a bunch of really weird movies.
It's a Gonzo Japanese action movie, basically.
We're
going to get into what this movie is exactly, but you've probably seen it. It's the one with Nicolas Cage. The pull quote is the wildest movie I've ever made from Nicolas Cage.
Right.
Which is probably, it's definitely close to true. He gets one of his testicles blown off within the first 20 minutes. Yeah, it's, it had a tiny bit of a splash. It had a tiny bit of a splash because of... This was
a movie I'd been wanting to see for a while because it was always just floating around. Where I knew the synopsis where it was Nicolas Cage is doing this movie soon where he has bombs strapped to him and he has to I thought it was going to be a Crank thing, and then the closer we got to this, the more I saw of it, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be just really weird.
It premiered at Sundance back in January.
Yeah, it's got Bill Moseley in it, who I always love. I always fucking love Bill Moseley. He's such a... I feel like he's a very underrated actor because he can give a real performance if he has to.
Yeah.
He can also play mean. He can play pathetic. He'll do whatever you want.
I was thinking that watching this movie is that he always turns in such an interesting performance.
Yeah. And then I would argue in The Devil's Reject, he straight up acts.
He steals the movie in The Devil's Reject.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
When you realize you're starting to feel bad for him, you're like, wait, no, I don't feel bad for him. He's just doing a really good job.
Yeah.
He's one of those people where it's I want him to really blow up at some point as an actor. You know what I mean? I want somebody to give him an Oscar-winning performance,
or a real good limited series role.
Yeah, because I really think he's capable of that.
Yeah.
But of course, he's just a side dish to this meal that is Nicolas Cage. We haven't asked the vital question, Tom. How did you like Prisoners of the Ghostland?
That's an interesting question, Dave. It took me a while for this movie to click, for me to click with this movie. But about halfway through it did, and I really enjoyed it for the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, here's okay. I had a similar thing, but it's actually in a different order, where I found it really fun. Then I got really bored, and then I found it really fun again.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it's certain things you have to push past. Once you get past, say, the weirdness, then you realize what type of movie it is, and it's actually like, it reminds me of like any 90s movie, like a Robin Hood tale, where it's like, it's sort of that, right? It's just like,
well, what it is.
I find a group of misfits, we all team together, and we beat up the big lord, the governor.
Basic, yeah. It's it is surreal Japanese Mad Max.
Yeah, exactly.
And once I figured that out, I was fine. Because the movie is quite surreal, like surprisingly. It's hard to follow for the first half. If you're not entirely sure what kind of movie it is, it's a little hard to follow at first.
Right. But then once you realize what it is, I thought it was extremely easy to follow.
Yeah.
It was still weird.
It's weird. It's never not weird. It feels like a lot of anime. Like watching it, I get a lot of like Trigun from it, or like That
it's
sort
weird
of vibe.
by omission, where it like doesn't tell you right away what's happening, and then once you figure out what's happening, you're like, oh, this all makes sense. Yeah. My biggest criticism of it is it could have been weirder. I wish it was weirder.
This was the right amount of weird for me for what the movie was trying to be.
Weirder
go ahead.
Or wilder. I think some of this is like they only have so much budget. They can't do things that are too over the top. But like, for example, I didn't find the action particularly good because they're cutting around the fact that Nicolas Cage can't, do karate.
Yeah.
And
there's also not a lot of it.
No, there's not a lot. And I just needed like some sort of more awesome factor. I don't know. Again, for what it is, I quite enjoyed it. I just felt like it was missing, like it needed an extra oomph, like a little push. And I don't exactly know what that is, because I love the look of it.
Mm-hmm. No, it looks really cool. Like I said, it really feels like surreal Mad Max with like an anime flair. Like I do get a big Trigun vibe from just the look of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know. I think I see what you're saying. I don't think it needed to be weirder for the story that it's trying to be, because it's trying to be a pretty straightforward story in a familiar genre. It's so, because it just drops you right in. Like there's no title card that introduces you to this world. It just drops you in there, and you kind of catch as catch can. And it's not that complicated. You figure it out.
Yeah, well, I don't think... I never know... Like, by the end, I don't know what kind of world this is. I know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's that thing where I was watching with Hannah, and the first question she's like, when does this take place? And it's like, I don't think we need to be asking questions like that. Because there's no way to...
There's no way to peg it. Yeah, it seems to be post-apocalypse.
Yeah, but then there's parts where people are on their phones, like taking video. And there's like banks, and the banks are nice.
There's banks. And there's like Dave. There's Bank Town.
There's Bank Town.
There's Bank Town. There's a town that is banks, and then there's Samurai Town, which is where Bill Moseley is the governor.
Right.
And then he has to leave out of Samurai Town to go find Sophia Patella out in the Ghostlands.
That's correct.
And the Ghostlands are radioactive prisoners who have been turned into like nuclear ghosts.
What we learned is that a prison truck crashed into like a nuclear waste truck. It exploded, and they're ghosts. They're radioactive ghosts. And so they're keeping basically the residents there. They refuse to let them leave. Hence, prisoners of the Ghostland.
Yeah.
They are prisoners of the Ghostland. So
it's basically anyone who wanders out into the wastes is going to get waylaid by these ghosts, and they'll just wreck your car. You just get trapped out there.
The idea, and so this is like an oasis where the governor, like basically they have a nice area, but everybody has to, serve under the governor, Bill Moseley, who I always remember after the fact sounds like Will Forte.
He does.
Like, doesn't
he truly does.
When you close your eyes, it's just Will Forte being a warlord.
Yep.
It's very funny. And he's clearly not treating women very well. They don't get into it.
I love the end where it's all falling apart and he runs back to his house and they're all fucking robbing him and they're just calling him a loser.
Yeah. That's wonderful. They don't get into it, but he's clearly like a monster.
He keeps a harem
of some.
He calls them. He wants to pretend to be all their grandfather. Like he calls them all. Like he's like it's grandpa. He just collects. He collects women when they're young girls. It just like he gets Sifu Batella after her mom gets killed in a robbery that's committed by Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, this opens with Nicolas Cage committing a robbery with what's his name? Who's that actor?
I don't know. His character's name is. Oh, it's Nick Cassavetes.
Nick Cassavetes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Nicolas Cage and Nick Cassavetes, double Nicks, robbing a bank, and they allude to the fact that it's pretty clear that Nick Cassavetes, who plays Psycho,
his character's name is Psycho. Yeah, he was in Face Off. If you remember, he was in Face Off with Nick Cage.
Yeah, he shoots a little boy. And amongst others,
he shoots everyone in the bank. But
but like it's implied in the opening that's like, oh yeah, he totally shot that kid. But we don't see what happens after that. Nicolas Cage is just in jail in like this sheriff. This old like he's in his underwear and like the sheriff. It's like a Western style jail. And they bring him out. They say you killed all these people. It's hard to know the timeline because. We learned later both of them got arrested, right? Mm-hmm. Has he been a fugitive? Is that the idea? Is that Nicolas Cage?
No, I think Nicolas Cage has been in jail.
In that little jail?
I don't know if he's been in that little jail. He might have gotten moved there because the governor picked him specifically to go.
Okay, yeah, that makes
get
sense.
His daughter, but like we see him when we see the event.
He wasn't.
Go ahead.
Oh, he wasn't on the prison bus.
No.
That we learn. So that's what I mean is like it's like hard to figure out what the hell happened.
Oh, maybe he did get away because he does run, but we see Psycho get arrested.
I think he did get away.
Okay, so he did get away, but
I think he's a wanted man.
It's been a few decades because Sophia Boutella is a little girl when the robbery happens.
Yeah, and so we also see her escaping with her friends. Mm-hmm. She's clearly like, fuck this place. But then she gets trapped in the Ghostland.
Mm-hmm.
Nicolas Cage, the governor takes Nicolas Cage. He puts a leather suit on him with a series of explosives. Not that big of explosives.
Right?
It turns
like
out
they're not huge bombs. They're just enough to like disable. Like he's got bombs attached to his arms, and one of his arm bombs goes off later, but it doesn't blow it off. It just kind of like fucks his arm.
Yeah, that said, he has 2 on his neck, and I'm sure those would kill him.
Oh, that'll kill you. Yeah, that's some Battle Royale shit.
Yeah,
like,
so he has a bunch of small explosives on, which, again, that's actually rather responsible, because if he exploded, then, like, people around him could get hurt.
Exactly, and he's specifically sending him to rescue his fake granddaughter.
Yes, and so, he tasks him with that. The bombs also, if he shows aggression towards her specifically, the bombs will explode.
Any unarmed woman, I think, is what he says.
Oh, okay. So there's so many moments. That's the thing. He strips down naked in front of children and families and just everybody in this town.
Yep, and they all start laughing when he pulls his loincloth off.
Yeah, and talking about his D.
Yep.
Someone's drawing him and like quickly erases the loincloth to like draw. It's done in a very surreal way. We're actually explaining what's happening, but like if you're watching the movie, you aren't entirely certain.
Right. It is extremely surreal.
Yeah.
Not extremely, but like it's pretty surreal. It's more surreal than these movies tend to be. So like than like apocalyptic action movies tend to be. So it's jarring at first as you walk in expecting Nick Cage in a gonzo Japanese action film that takes place in the wastes. So you're expecting one thing, and this movie is kind of that, but it delivers it in a surreal package.
Yeah, it's very meandering, like shots on things that you don't fully understand.
A lot of dreams and visions.
Yeah, you have to like slowly piece together like, okay,
So
like the bank town, the town of banks is
Bank
like
Town.
they don't explain that. You're just like, what the fuck is this town?
But they kind of don't need to, because you've seen that Samurai Town is a thing, and then you see Bank Town, and you're like, okay, I kind of get it. It's like, the movie is smart in that its actual story is not complicated, because where you run into problems is when you start throwing the surreal elements on top of a story that's already complicated. Then it becomes a nightmare to watch for an audience.
So he's given a car, and they're like, go rescue.
And he hops on a bike.
And he hops on a bike.
I really wanted him to do the whole movie on this bike.
This was the funniest thing. It was like they read that Cracked article we did a long time ago about things you don't see in the apocalypse, and one of them is bikes. I don't know if you remember that. I wrote that one, and the writer of Booka, Eli, later tweeted it and said, like, yeah, because it would look stupid. Like, if they're on a bike, like, yeah, that's logical, but you don't want to see, like, Denzel Washington riding a bike. And they basically do that joke where Nicolas Cage stops the car, gets on a shitty bike, and we do the sequence of him pedaling. And he looks ridiculous because he's in this, like, playing apocalypse gear. Yeah,
he's wearing, like, the leather suit and everything. Like, he looks like Mad Max, only he's riding a child's bike with a little basket on the front.
And he looks stupid.
Yeah, he
so
looks
one
real
of the
stupid.
henchmen brings the car back around, and they're like, no, get in the car. And they make him take the car. It's such a weird moment, though, because, again, that's a funny gag, but when he takes the bike, everybody's, like, weirdly impressed. Like, everybody goes, ooh, what a badass, when he takes the bike.
Yeah, because he's telling the governor to fuck himself. He's like,
that's the idea.
He's basically like, I would rather explode, like, because he's got, like, a limited time. It's like 3 days.
Yeah. He has 3 days, and if the fake granddaughter, says her name into this thing on his arm, then he'll get more days. So yeah, it's him basically saying, I'm going to take my time. I don't give a fuck. And so they're like, no, take the car, you asshole. He drives into the Ghostland, immediately gets confronted by demons. They're shrouded. You can't really see them. And then he gets like, and this is the stuff where it's like, where it's surreal, where you see that and you think, oh, is there a fight or something? And then he's just like lying on the ground and his car's crashed. And you're not really sure. Again, saying he goes into the Ghostlands, they don't make that clear.
Well, it makes sense.
He goes into the wastelands. It all makes sense later. Yes,
it makes sense later. He drives into the wastes. The ghosts appear. He like growls and accelerates towards them, and then it cuts. And this might be my favorite moment of the film. It just cuts to him. The car has crashed, like it's beached itself. It's run up on like a little hill of rocks. Doors open, he's fallen out, and he's just laying face down next to his crashed wasteland mobile, like his awesome Mad Max car. He's just laying in the dirt next to it, like a fucking jerk.
He rolled a 0.
And it lasts for a while. Like, it takes him a minute to get up.
Yeah, everything takes a while. He gets carted into this town
by my favorite character in the film, Ratman.
Ratman, yes. Ratman is like,
man rules hard.
Yes, they're dressed. There's a faction of this town that looks like Borderlands. Like, I was thinking this director could do a Borderlands movie easily.
Yeah. He's like halfway there.
Yeah. So it's like that. You know which Borderlands aesthetic I'm specifically talking about, which planet.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of mannequins dressed up, seemingly like an insidious environment. Like, you think he's going into something that's bad. Weird dancers. There's like people like cheerleading essentially as he's going by. There's chanting and people like doing children and like weird old people and like things you just don't understand that you're looking at. It looks like Burning Man. It looks like he's going into Burning Man, but like more sinister.
Yeah, a little bit more sinister. Just a little bit. But yeah, it's everybody shouting at him in different language. It's just this cacophony. There's a giant clock.
Yeah. He's getting dragged. Giant clock that people are trying to like pull the second hand of.
Yeah.
And like they're tugging it all day. And he learns that this is the Ghostland. This is where they're trapped. We don't really understand why why any of this is happening, or why the specifics, why they look like this. We learn that the woman he's searching for has lost her voice. They all suddenly are very helpful. They're not out to get him. They're just like, oh yeah, he shows the picture. He's just like calling them freaks, and he's just very irritated with them. And they're like, yeah, she's over there. She lost her voice. She needs to find her voice. And she's wrapped in mannequin pieces.
Yeah. This one dude with this one fucking incredible looking dude.
Yeah, this vampire-looking motherfucker.
He fucking looks like Drag. He's got silky long hair and a top hat.
Yeah.
He's dressing all these ladies that get toe up by the ghosts, I guess. Apparently, when you encounter the ghosts, they take something from you. So
except for Nicolas Cage, but yeah.
Except for Nick Cage, like he seems fine. But then we learn, of course, that the leader of the ghosts is his old crime buddy, Psycho.
Spoilers, yeah.
But yeah, so this dude has like dressed all these women up in mannequin parts to keep them hidden from the ghosts, basically.
Right.
It's like this weird, like this dude is still like sinister, but there's an interesting flip there. Yeah, like you were describing, where he gets carried into this town and you think it's going to go one way, and then it turns out it's like, oh no, these are the good guys. Like these are the good guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this movie. And so he's still weird and sinister. He's like, I will protect you, my ladies. Like he's weird and creepy about it.
My little cookie is what he calls
my little cookie.
But yeah.
But when Nicolas Cage is like
creepy about it.
But when Nicolas Cage is like, he's not like doing anything to them except for this. And that's the whole town seems to think, yes, that's helping them. He's like doing essentially the work of a doctor, a spiritual doctor. Yeah. But he's creepy as fuck about it. And then when Nicolas Cage is like, well, I gotta grab her, they don't stop him. They're just like, yeah, take her. So nobody is standing in his way. They're just like, you'll never get out. The ghost will never let you out. And Nicolas Cage takes her, and she can't speak, so he can't get her to speak in his thing. His little dildo, his Pip-Boy or whatever on his wrist.
He literally has a Pip-Boy on his wrist.
Yeah. It's the same aesthetic too.
So he is getting her out of the mannequin stuff. He accidentally gets half a chub and his dick explodes.
Yes, he gets slightly erect, so one of his balls explodes.
Just blows up. It is tremendous.
Nicolas Cage, for the most of this movie, he's not very Nicolas Cage, which is fine. Yeah, honestly. He becomes Nicolas Cage in a couple moments. His testicle exploding being one of them. He holds his own ball in his hand, and he does what anyone would do, which is pass out.
Yeah, he collapses for several days.
Yeah. And he has the dream of the robbery, and we learn a little more. I think at that point we learn that in the robbery, Psycho lived up to his name and killed everybody, and Nicolas Cage tried to stop him.
He Mr. Blondes out.
Yeah.
The robbery.
I liked that Nicolas Cage still accepts responsibility throughout the movie, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Where he talks about, I hurt those people, even though he didn't actually. He
didn't directly, but he decided to do a robbery with Psycho on his team.
Who he also never doesn't like Psycho.
Right, he's his friend.
They're friends.
He's his fucking friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
When he meets him at the end, he's like, "Oh, we had such great times together, but I need to ask you for one." Like, and Psycho's like, "But you betrayed me." He's like, "I know, but we hurt a lot of people, and now they need my help. So can you let me through just one last time for old time's sake?" And they're like, "Yeah," and they like embrace and shit. It's wild.
So good. I was getting to that. That's my favorite part of this movie, I think.
Yeah.
What happens is basically they she drags him back to the town, right? She speaks finally in the thing.
Yeah,
we learned that she's the little girl at the robbery at the beginning.
Yeah.
So she was shot in the leg. So Nicolas Cage feels directly responsible for her. And then so there's this preacher type guy who's like, all hope is lost, you can't leave. We learned the backstory. They tell it as like a fireside tale of that a prison truck and a nuclear waste truck collided, created these ghosts, created this wasteland they can't escape. I'm not entirely sure why they're fighting time.
I think that one was a little hard to pin down.
It's related to the governor.
It's something to do Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the metaphor of time is standing still for these people and they don't want it to move forward. They're trying to keep the clock from ticking because they think another explosion will happen, is what they say. It's this that element's harder to pin down logically in terms of what it literally means for the narrative. It's one of the more surreal elements of it, but at the end they let it go and it blows up and they're all cheering and it signifies their release. That's as best I could figure it.
Yeah, and the realization is that the governor is the one who tasked her on this. Not that we didn't know this already,
right?
But he's the real bad guy.
He's the bad guy,
and like they prepped. Nicolas Cage is basically like, I have a day, so I'm going to get us the fuck out of here. Are you with me or are you not? Oh. You can do whatever. I don't give a shit.
This is where we need to talk about Ratman. We must.
There's
talk
a lot
about
we need to talk about here.
So Ratman is this crazy cool guy who's got crazy cool armor he's made out of. He's a scavenger. He leads a clan of scavengers, and they love cars and lights and gear. So he's just covered head to toe in random odd pieces of machinery, electronics. He's got a cool lantern helmet. He and all of his buddies
he's very
have these
helpful
dope Legion of Doom shoulder pads that are also covered with neon lights. And he goes to Ratman also speaks with like the Scream Killer's voice modulator.
Yeah, they all have weird shit where you gotta watch this with captions.
You do have to watch it with captions. I was gonna say that a lot of the actors are English is not their first language.
Yes, but on top of that, they speak through weird filters.
Yes, so like with somebody like Ratman, who's played by a Japanese actor, on top of that, he's doing his voices being modulated electronically. So like, I had to back it up with the captions. I don't know what the fuck Ratman is saying, but I love him.
It is, you cannot understand a word he's saying.
It's Ratman specifically is very, very hard to understand if you don't have the captions on, and it's 90% because of this voice modulator.
Right.
But he's just this dope dude who likes working on cars. So Nick Cage goes to Ratman. He's like, Ratman, make us some cars, and Ratman makes them like this fleet of neon lit up carny trucks. It rules.
It rules. But here's
awesome. And they don't drive them. They just leave them there.
I know. That's where my frustration comes. That's where I'm like, I really could have used a scene with those.
They didn't have the budget for it.
No, they didn't, because it's Mad Max if they never actually did any of the car stuff.
Right. They do have a cool explosion at the end
they do.
When the clock explodes. That's a dope explosion. You're like, okay, here's where most of that money went.
Yeah. And so what happens is, he gets this fleet, he gets all the townspeople together, and then they just hang back. What happens is that, what we're kind of getting at, or rather what I was, is that you keep meeting characters that you assume are additional bad people, and the realization keeps being like, no, it's just the governor. It's the elite.
Just Bill Moseley, yeah.
Yeah, so they get confronted by the demons, and my favorite fucking showdown ever happens, which you already described, which is the demons show up, they're magical, they're terrifying, and then they're led by Psycho, and he's like, remember me? And they've been setting up Psycho as like this ghost from his past, this darkness, and Nicolas Cage just goes, oh, Psycho, and like approaches, and they start shooting the shit
and they're still friends.
And they're still friends, because why aren't they?
Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah, and that's when he's like, listen, we just need to get by. And this is like, they're the mystical, they were the prisoners, obviously, that crashed.
Yeah.
That burned in the nuclear fire. And they're like, this whole time, they're the big bads that they keep talking about. And all he does is talk to them. And then they're like, yeah, just get the governor. Yeah, we're on the same side. And they let them go. Mm-hmm. And that's the big showdown with the demons.
With the ghosts, yeah.
It's so good.
It's very, again, I get a lot of like anime vibes from that. It feels like that kind of storytelling. Like I might be speaking out of turn. I apologize if I am, but that's what the vibe I kept getting. It's like, man, this feels like Trigun. Like it looks like you just like, you know.
Yeah. I don't know. And so it's really anticlimactic. I get why this has mixed reviews, right? Like that.
It has very low audience scores.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, because they're going it's like, I think Mandy ran into the same thing where they're going in expecting it to be Face Off, and it's not that.
Yeah. There's this thing I know people have talked about on Twitter and stuff too, where like Nicolas Cage, people will go to see his movies and like be laughing and like hollering when it's not even like a comedic or weird performance.
Like Pig.
Yeah, Pig had that. I think a few others has had that, where it's like they think they're like, yeah, you're gonna do the jokes, and then he doesn't, and they like don't realize it, and they just plow along like that's what's happening. And I think that's the thing with Nicolas Cage, is that he rarely actually does the I'm a out of control, wild, look at me, I'm Nicolas Cage.
Mm-hmm.
At least not the same way every time. Like Mandy, he's out of control, but he's actually like pretty serious in the first half. It works really well for the movie being told. And so this is the same, where it's like he has a few moments, but other than that, he's just he barely speaks. He's very solemn in this movie.
There are definitely some moments.
The movie knows it's funny.
Like when he gets up to make his character's name is Hero, by the way.
Yes, his character's name is Hero.
When he ascends the steps to the clock tower to make his empowering, inspiring speech to the prisoners of the Ghostland, even though they're not it's the actual prisoners we talk anyway. The trapped people in the waste, to rally them to go back to Samurai Town and destroy the governor. He starts it off by it's low key a hilarious speech, because he says stuff like, I got my arm blown up. They blew up my testicle.
Yeah.
And
there's absolutely
he says,
Nicolas Cage.
He says, like, listen up, bitches.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's
impossible.
Very fucking weird.
Ha! If you had told me 2 days ago that I'd be out here helping you freaks. No, he says, you bitches.
Yeah.
And get blown up get one testicle.
Yeah. There's a lot of moments where it knows it's funny. When he's riding the bike, later he faces off against the main henchman and they kick each other in the balls.
Yeah.
And they have this moment where they both try to recover, and then I think Nicolas Cage goes, fuck!
Yeah.
And then they both just like take a moment.
Yeah. They take a moment to deal with
it
that.
It knows what it is.
And it plays a little bell chime when they get hit.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't a serious movie, but it's definitely, it's a weird fucking movie.
It's very weird, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when we get into the main thing where, he faces off against the governor. We haven't talked about the other woman who's out of her mind, who holds the robot.
Susie.
And what?
I believe her name is Susie, right?
Susie? Yeah, and just at the end, just gets behind a minigun all of a sudden and shoots so many people.
She was one of, I guess she probably grew up with Bernice, Sofia Boutella, because they're very close. And we just see the governor kind of tormenting her the whole movie and treating her like like an idiot.
She's incredible. Like that actress, she nailed it.
Yeah. So what happens, it makes sense when it happens. Well, I mean, as much sense as you expect this movie to make, because Nick Cage has dragged Bernice back to town, and the governor's like, oh, my sweet Bernice. And he's like, give me the fucking key so he can unlock his bomb neck. And Bill Moses is like, I wouldn't piss on your face if you were on fire in the face, or something like that.
Yeah.
So he grabs Sofia Boutella with a knife to her neck, and it is obviously his bomb is also going to go off because he's attacking her.
Right.
So he's going to stab her. He's like, give me the key. And that's when Susie freaks out and jumps on the Gatling gun because she wants Bernice to be okay.
Yeah. And I feel like him and Bernice, he was never going to hurt her. They're just trying to...
not, but
Yeah, they're just trying to get the best of the governor. Mm-hmm. So, and again, all the fleet, all the stuff they brought... I think the idea is they bring all that to fight the demons.
Yeah.
And then when he realizes that the demons are fine, they don't need any of that, and then they just everybody stays behind. So it's just like 4 people, or it's just 2. Just those 2 fighting the governor. He has to fight the sort of cool henchman who like you think is going to turn. But ultimately, his loyalty stays with the governor. There's a cool idea where he protects Nicolas Cage so that he can be the one who kills him.
Right. He doesn't want the scrubs to kill him. And he does keep goons from killing Sophia Boutella and Susie.
Yeah. His alliances are like just slightly different.
Right, 'cause we learned,
which I liked.
Yeah, we learned that he's basically press ganged into being a governor's henchman because governor has his sister working in one of his brothels.
Yeah, so he's going to kill Nicolas Cage. He's not going to feel good about it.
No, it's clear he feels bad about everything he does for the governor. Yeah,
but he's still going to do it, and he'll try to do it in the best way possible. So they do a good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately, she ends up shooting the governor a whole bunch.
All of the times. It's very funny.
All of the times, yes.
Like she shoots him a bunch, and he's like, "Oh," and then falls out. And then she just keeps shooting him. It'll cut to him getting shot and then falling over, and then it cuts back to her holding the gun, and you think it's going to be like that. She's just going to hold it, and it's going to be that like. Yeah, shot of victory, and it's like no, she keeps squeezing off more shots.
A few more, just for good measure.
Cutting back to the governor, and more squibs going on.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. That's more or less the movie, right?
Yeah, we sure did just summarize the movie for you.
It's one of those movies though where like there's a bunch of I wanted to go through it because there was a bunch of little things that I was like I know I'm gonna forget it.
Yeah,
unless we go through it. It's I don't know, man. It's like
the broad strokes of this movie are weird but straightforward. But there are buck wild moments. There's some buck wild Cage moments in this movie for sure.
Yeah, and there's some buck wild visual moments. Stuff like the weird choir with their heads through the wall. Like it's shit where it's that's it's almost Gilliam-esque.
A little bit.
But
a little bit.
It's actually more it's honestly a little more surreal than Gilliam at times. Because Gilliam, you sort of understand the world, or the world is supposed to be illogical in a specific way. In this, there's just sort of stuff that you have to accept. I guess that's just what the world is, huh?
There's not a lot of connective tissue between the many different elements of this world. You just kind of have to. Well, this is just what the world is.
Yeah, it's more like, and I do appreciate that because it's almost like it's assuming you know this world and it's presenting the story that way.
Yeah.
So like it's like you said, the story's simple, so you can spend a lot of time figuring out what the little things are, and ultimately the little things aren't really that.
You don't need to understand the world. The movie gives you like 2 or 3 things that you need to get.
It reminds me, actually, of why I really like Aeon Flux. Because Aeon Flux will do these things where, like, a character will walk in and he'll have, like, a bunch of beans in his hand and he'll put them in his boot and you're like, what the fuck? And then later he'll hit his boot and the beans will come out and they're, like, wasps that attack someone. And you're like, oh, I guess, okay. Like, I guess that was, like, a weird weapon he had. Where, like, there's little things like that where you're like, they don't explain it, but it's not as simple as someone holding a gun, you know, where it's like, oh, I guess that thing does this. All right, sure, yeah, why not? Or like it's almost like a game like Myst, where you're like, what does all this shit do? And you slowly kind of learn as you go. But even then, like stuff like the clock and stuff, where it's like I'm still not quite sure what the point of the clock was, but
yeah. I mean,
I don't hate it.
Like I said earlier, I can't quite pin that one down beyond what it means.
I think that's the thing. Is it's about class struggles, right? It's about the idea that we pit the poor against each other. The ghosts are keeping down this other group, where they're both on the same side. Ultimately, is the realization. And it all trickles up. And then there's the people like his second in command who maintain the status quo and don't realize that they're getting fucked over too, and they'll fight tooth and nail to stay under this oppression. It's not like deep.
No.
You know?
It's very simple.
It's pretty simple for a movie that's so fucking out of its mind.
Yeah, I think that's as I was mentioning earlier, I think that's a smart decision to make when you want to do a movie like this, is to keep it simple so you can pile on all the flair in like the surreal images and kind of all the weirdness that happens. You want the story to be pretty simple.
Yeah, where I think the movie has issues is, again, it's not really the movie's fault. They only really have like 2 sets. Like, ultimately, they have the nice area and then they have the bad area. And they don't have much else.
No.
It's like a rock quarry and then like a backlot set, it feels like, you know? And so, like, for example, that truck thing, it's a funny anticlimactic joke, but that's where I was like, I really wish, around the middle, I wish we had more to do. Or maybe the movie needed to be a little shorter. Like, I could have shaved off like 15 minutes from this movie.
Cut this. It's about an hour 45. You probably cut it down to a tight 90.
Yeah, it's like a little meandering in the middle. It's kind of nothing really happens. Mm-hmm. There's no action. And it kind of does need something, I think, to sort of happen in that time.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but I would say extremely strong beginning and end.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite movie, you know?
No, by no means. But it was perfectly enjoyable. It's a nice, weird movie. It looks great. Like, the visuals are great.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I really liked.
We're knocking it, you know, with these budget jokes, but it does not look cheap by any means. Like, that's a very pretty film.
When the clock falls, it's like, wow.
Well, yeah,
they
that
did
looks dope as shit. And just like in general, it's a good looking movie. It's very pretty.
The stuff that they clearly have to get around is, again, they give Nicolas Cage a hilarious helmet and a knife arm for the end. And then whenever he's fighting people, it's just very clear he doesn't know how to. That's not his fault.
No, he's 60.
But like, yeah, exactly. But it is like, the action is like, yeah, they're working with what they got.
Yeah.
It feels like, you know what? Honestly, I love Nicolas Cage. I love him. Yeah. I'd love to see this with Keanu Reeves. I think Keanu Reeves could have also done this. I feel like when they were making this, they probably asked, "Can we get Keanu?" Or both. I would have both in them.
Honestly, yeah. Make one of them hero. Make one of them the heavy. The Yasujiro character.
Yeah. I would say make one the governor, but Bill Moseley, man.
Bill Moseley's killing it, yeah.
So good. There's a lot to love here. If you like weird movies, it's definitely worth watching.
It's helpful going in knowing what it is. So hopefully us telling you that it's like surreal Japanese Mad Max will hopefully make it a little easier, because it's kind of overwhelming at first, because you're trying to figure all the stuff you're trying to figure out when you're watching a movie. You're like, okay, who are the main characters? What's the game? Where does this take place? Like, all the stuff you normally think about consciously or subconsciously when you're beginning a movie or a TV show can be a little difficult to parse in a movie like this that is so weird and surreal. So
yeah, it's all right. I say this in the least pretentious way. It's not for everyone. No, and I don't mean that in a way of like it's an artistic triumph.
No,
I mean that in a way that it's a certain style that if you watch and you don't like it, that there's no one's blaming you.
Where it's like, yeah. It's not. You're not watching it incorrectly if this doesn't appeal to you. It's just some people will not like this.
Yeah, it's pineapple on pizza, where it's like, not for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's and like I said, I didn't find it amazing or anything. I enjoyed it, but it's a delight if you're into that sort of thing. Like, not the way. Yeah, I would say like Mandy is the type of film where it's like, that's actually more accessible, wouldn't you think? Wouldn't you agree?
In some ways. I think Mandy's
both are weird, but Mandy's a little more, at least artistically fulfilling. Like, there's...
Yeah, I think Mandy's a better film, but I think Mandy is also better at front load, because, Mandy's... I don't know if it's because there is a definite difference between Eastern and Western storytelling, so I don't know it's but all I'm getting at is that the information that I was saying, like the who, what, when stuff is a little more obviously front loaded in a movie like Mandy.
They're entirely different types of films.
Very
too.
different too. They're just similar in that they have Cage and that they're also kind of weird and surreal. But ultimately very simple stories.
Yeah, both of them are. Yeah, they're both simple stories told in very unusual ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where the similarities end, really.
Yeah.
Cage is even kind of a different character in the two.
Oh, he's not the same at all in either of those movies, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. If you like the meme side of Cage, then this is, honestly, I would either skip or fast forward through it.
This isn't that, yeah. There's a couple of meme moments, but it's mostly not that.
Yeah.
So, which I think accounts a lot for the low audience score.
I also think that's the majority of Nicolas Cage movies, is the most memey stuff comes from movies where then when people sit and watch them, they're like, oh, well, this isn't that. You know, like the stuff like Vampire's Kiss and stuff where you watch it and you're like, Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. Like, it's kind of a slog. So, I don't know. Nicolas Cage, sometimes I feel bad for him for that reason. I'd love to see him sort of like, I feel like he needs to reclaim himself. Does that make sense? I don't know. As like a celebrity, I feel like he needs to recalibrate. And like recalibrate people's expectations of him. Like it's not anything he's doing wrong. Does that make sense? Like it's just like he like I feel like he needs to like win another Oscar or something. I don't know. But he's terrific.
Yeah. I don't know. He can keep doing this for the rest of his career if he wants to.
He really could. He should do a Next sequel.
I mean, yes, obviously.
Called Next. I think I'm out of stuff here.
Yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about this film.
Yeah, I mean, if you're into weird shit, go watch it. If you're not into weird shit, don't watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
Let me tell you guys about our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. If you go on there, there's some exclusive podcasts for $5 a month. You can listen to Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Motors, A Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama. We just dropped for Batman Day, some free Batman episodes that you might not have heard before. So check that out. We watch movies every Friday night with our patrons. This is probably the type of movie we'd watch
I think
on Friday,
so.
right?
Yeah, I think so. This definitely fits into that vibe. We've watched Mandy.
Yeah, we sure have.
We also have a store. If you head on over to gamefullyunemployed.com, you can find the link to our Teespring store where you have t-shirts, posters, stickers, all kinds of stuff. Check that out.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, by all means, check out the free Tom and Jeff Watch Batman episodes we put on our feed for in celebration of Batman Day.
And if you know Bill Moseley, give him a thumbs up for me.
Yeah, just, let him know he's doing a good job.
You just say, hey, Billy, here's my thumb. And that's it.
You notice what direction it's pointing? Up.
Yeah, it's going up.
That's for you, big guy.
That's from Dave to you.